Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, I'm going to talk about whether I feel it's noble to be natty in 2023. Before I get into this topic, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. The best topic ideas I turn into videos just like this. Do I feel it's noble to be natty in the year 2023? Well, I want to take you guys back a little bit. I was watching a video by James Tiny Vest, and you can head over to his channel, James Tiny Vest, and it kind of brought a lot of things to mind, a lot of interesting points, and a really solid perspective. I want to talk about what it was like being natty in 1986 to 1990, those first 4 years where I made a lot of my quality gains, compared to what it's like to be natty now. Now, I've been in the game for a long time. I started a website called Muscle and Brawn in 2007. It became one of the larger lifting forums on the internet. I became an editor and content manager at Muscle and Strength and later at Tiger Fitness. So I've spent well over a decade working with pretty much everybody in the world you can imagine, from Mike Rashid to Ronnie Coleman. I've been in gyms all over the country. I've just met a diverse number of people. I've had so many different types of people in my office. And just being on a forum, I've been privy to information, all the trends, starting with pro hormones back in 2006, 2007. To where we are now with testosterone and SARMs and, a lot of easy access to TRT and a lot of more milder TRT usage. TRT usage is far more, it goes without saying, it's far more normal and mainstream. Back in my day, there just wasn't anything like that. So the question is it noble to be natty in 2023? Now, back in my era, 1986 to 1990, and that's when I really started lifting hardcore, the really only thing you would see is like a little bit of an ad in the back of a bodybuilding or muscle building magazine. And it would get steroids, mail away a check, right? And you could get mail order steroids. Now, I was a kid back then, and I was making really good gains, and I won't lie, I was tempted. I didn't even know how steroids worked. I didn't even know there were needles involved. There was just no information at all, but I knew some of my role models, some of the guys that I followed were taking steroids, and they looked pretty big, and I wanted to be like them. Now, my training was going great. I was packing on muscle mass. Everything was just perfect for me. I just kind of luckily stumbled into the right mix of sleep and weight gain and progressive overload. I was making great gains. A lot of that, though, was just by random luck. But back then, just being curious, I decided once to mail away $200 to some place in Canada from the back of a bodybuilding magazine. It said, you mail us $200 and we'll send you steroids. This isn't a legit bodybuilding magazine. This was in Muscle and Fitness or Flex. It wasn't like it was in some fringe magazine. These are the ads these magazines had in the back, back in 1986, 1987. So I mailed away my $200 and I waited on my steroids and they never came. And I didn't, I just knew that I had been duped, and it was a good education for an 18, 19-year-old kid. Now, back to the question, is it more noble to be natty these days? Back then, there wasn't a lot of information. There was nobody I knew taking steroids. There was no conversation about steroids. I don't think there was much talk about steroids really until the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa baseball era where they were taking steroids and crushing, 65 plus home runs. Before that, there just wasn't a lot of conversation. There was no pro hormones. There was no SARMs. There was no testosterone. There was nobody talking about TRT. There was just nobody anywhere. There was just no access, and there literally was no temptation unless you were somebody that was lucky enough to stumble across someone in a gym that was taking steroids, or that was a steroid supplier, if you will. It wasn't until about 2007 where I really think the temptation started to kick in on the internet, where I really started to notice that the information was more prevalent in it and the temptation had become a thing. On the forums back in those days, and I was on my forum, Muscle and Brawn, I was on I'll Pump You Up, and even bodybuilding.com, you started to see the prevalence of pro-hormone talk. Pro-hormones were everywhere. They were talking about them. People were trying cycles. They were trying PCT and all kinds of things, and the temptation was strong. But there was also a lot of negative pushback. You're going to shit out your liver, and a lot of fear and panic behind these things. But you started to see that. You started to see pro-hormones, which were legal, being used, and logs being kept, and cycles being kept. And we went from an era where there was nothing anywhere, there was no temptation, to overnight you could get pro-hormones anywhere on any number of websites legally. And yes, even though they weren't steroids, they were still dipping your toes in the pool, in what I call the mild end of the pool. Not to ramble on about old guy stories, but these days there's a much broader mild end of the pool. There's so many different access points, and you have the inclusion of TRT, legal TRT clinics. If you have the money, you can legally go out and get whatever you want from these legal TRT clinics. It's literally everywhere in nearly any type of form you want. If you want to dip your toes in the, if you want to go old school and do pro hormones, or you want to do SARMs, or you want to do TRT, it's just everywhere. It seems like you can't walk into a gym and notice somebody that's not on something. The amount of temptation that exists these days is simply mind-blowing to an older lifter like myself. Now, I'm not somebody that's going to get into this big judgment discussion, because I literally do not give a shit what anybody does. It's their choice. I don't consider using TRT or these types of chemicals to be cheating. It's just a personal thing. If people do it legally and they want to enhance their physique a little bit, they want a little bit of a bump, go right ahead. That's on you. I don't care. It's none of my business. Who really gives a shit? This is not a competition. We're not trying to win Mr. Olympia. And I really don't have time or the mental capacity to worry about what anybody else is doing. Not only that, but I've met so many wonderful people in my time in the industry that I prefer to interact with people on a one-to-one basis as who they are as people. Are they kind? Are they genuine? Are they real? That's more important to me than if they're putting 100 or 200 milligrams of testosterone in their body. It simply doesn't matter to me what they're doing, as long as they're a decent human being. Now, with all that said, do I consider the modern generation to be noble if they stay away from all the chaos? I'm going to echo what James Tinevest said, and I'm going to say, yeah, it's much more difficult to be natty these days, and I think it's a choice. I think with all the different access points and how easy it is to get TRT or any number of, what I call milder chemicals, I think it's a choice, and it is kind of a noble thing. It does any good to elevate these guys into better than anybody else. But yeah, there is kind of a degree of, I kind of like the old school, nobility of it all. Let's go back to the roots of lifting. Let's just make lifting about lifting and not about the stuff. For me, if somebody dives in and they just love lifting and they have a passion for lifting and they're building, that's really what's important to me. That's what I look for in another lifter that comes to me. Do these guys get it? Do they love lifting? I don't really care about chemicals. I don't really care about that side of the world. It's nothing that interests me. It's nothing that I educate myself on. Yes, I listen to people, and I've been around long enough to know all the stuff, but I'm just not that educated. I just don't care what people are taking. I'm not up on it. But all these chemicals are kind of like drugs. I mean, drug use has kind of been normalized. You can't go anywhere right now without smelling pot. And this isn't an anti-pot, spiel, but, drug use has been more normalized, 2023. And It's just easy access, and everybody seems to be doing it. Back in my day, if you wanted to smoke pot, it was a big major thing, and with the war on drugs, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble. So pot, or anabolics or whatever, it's kind of the same thing. It's easier to get, it's more normalized, and in that sense, anybody that makes a decision to not do something, to stay away from that stuff, to just kind of keep it simple and basic, I do think there is a degree of nobility to that. So I respect their decision to remain natty in a sea of absolute chaos. So guys, hope this video has been of some help. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. If you made it this far in this video and have yet to subscribe to my channel, please do. I'd appreciate the support. So guys, as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.